Hi guys, welcome to our channel. A Russian dancer girl is forced to be recruited by the intelligence service at the Sparrow school, where she learns to use her body as a weapon. Her first mission is to target a CIA agent, but getting into an emotional relationship with him changes things. Check the title of the movie in the description. Dominika Igorova is a famous Russian ballerina who cares for her mother, who has palsy. After visiting the doctor for her mother's examination, Dominika entrusts her mother's care to her aunt Nina and goes to the ceremony herself. After greeting her uncle, Ivan, he introduces Dominika to a Russian gangster named Dmitry Ustinov, and they take a photo together, with Dmitry touching her waist inappropriately. After that, the show starts, and it's time for Dominika to perform on stage. On the other hand, a secret CIA agent named Nathaniel Nash is assigned to take instructions from someone. While trading it off with a Russian spy, a car suspiciously watches them, but they pretend nothing happened. However, the car continues to chase him. Nate shoots on the ground to distract the men. While the car chases him, Nate manages to escape and immediately reaches the American embassy, surrounded by the embassy police. At the same time, at the end of the show, Dominika's leg is accidentally broken by her dance partner, and she falls to the ground. Dominika immediately undergoes surgery in a private clinic. Nate meets with his bosses, Trish and Marty, who assure him that the property is safe. Still, he will be deported to the United States for not doing his job properly. The next day, Ivan meets Colonel Zakharov in his office, and together with the head of the Russian Secret Service, General Korchnoi, they arrange a meeting about what happened last night. According to reports, CIA agent Nate has managed to leave the country. With a video showing their encounter in the park, it is unclear who the high-ranking Russian spy could be. When Dominika wakes up in bed, she finds her leg closed with a metal frame after surgery and is very sad that she can no longer dance. 3 months later, Dominika is still walking with a cane, and when she returns home, she finds that her uncle has visited them. In a private conversation, he informs Dominika that they have found a replacement for her and that the theater will probably soon stop financing the apartment and paying for her mother's medical expenses. He leaves an envelope for her and wants to help whenever she is ready. After her uncle leaves, Dominika opens the envelope and finds the photos and an audio file of her dancing partner and surrogate talking about taking her place in the theater. It turns out that it was intentional. Likewise, their sexual relationship is also revealed to her. Later that day, Dominika watches them after their dance practice and follows them as they head to the steam room to see their private session. After losing her temper, Dominika beats them both with her cane before leaving. In pursuit of revenge, she boldly punishes them in the worst way. After leaving there, she reports this incident to the police through a public phone. When she returns home, her mother is lying on the bathroom floor. Dominika realizes that her mother has been informed that they are no longer going to pay for her treatment, and now she has no choice but to ask her uncle for help. When they meet, her uncle is willing to help her financially on the condition that she completes a mission for the Secret Service in exchange for a small case for him. She is tasked with seducing Dmitry Ustinov, whom she had previously met, into having sex in exchange for her mother's medical expenses. Dominika doesn't accept this initially but finally convinces her uncle to go on this mission. After taking a shower and applying makeup, she waits in the same red dress at hotel for Dmitry to approach her. As expected, Dmitry joins her, and Dominika convinces him to go upstairs to his private room to sleep together. As his men leave, he undresses and brutally rapes Dominika. Meanwhile, a man with a helmet entered the room through the window. He cut Dmitry's throat from behind with a wire, and after he was suffocated, he was finally killed. After signaling for silence, the man hands Dominika a jacket to cover her bloody body and leads her out the back door. With a planned escape, after reaching the parking lot, he targets an employee and leaves the building. Without any explanation, he takes Dominika to an abandoned building. By removing his mask, his identity is revealed. Matarine, another of Ivan's secret agents. Dominika is being monitored by cameras in another room, and Korchnoi warns Ivan that she is now aware of the mission and should be killed as a witness. However, Ivan argues that she might be useful. He visits Dominika and claims he knew what was happening but didn't tell her because she wouldn't. He suggests that her become a member of the Russian Secret Service and that she should be accepted into the specialized courses she takes at the Sparrow security school. In this case, she can serve her country as a Sparrow. Dominika is forced to accept his request since he cannot protect her if she refuses. After saying goodbye to her mother, Dominika goes to that specialized center. Matron, the manager of this school, gives her a fake identity with the name Katya and guides her to her room. Classes start soon, and Matron explains the current state of the country and Russia's readiness to sacrifice for world order. Spies who are trained as sparrows must be skilled enough in seduction to extract information. She calls Dominika and another boy and asks them to strip, but Dominica refuses to do so, angering the matron. Due to Nate's wrong intentions in Russia, the CIA disciplinary court suspends and prevents him from leaving the country. After 3 years of working with Marble, their spy, he is suspended from continuing his missions despite his insistence on cooperating with him. In the school, the Sparrows undergo specialized training. Among other things, they get to know an invisible substance that remains on surfaces for weeks and can be used to find their targets. Matron asks the Sparrows questions by describing the subject's characteristics and motivations. Dominica shows her superiority to her classmate Hector with a correct answer in one case. When Anya, another student, answers one of Matron's questions incorrectly, she calls her out, summons the subject and asks Anya to kneel before him and do it. Still, she refuses to do so, crying and begging. Matron teaches her students basic methods of seduction and how to trick the targets with their bodies. On the other hand, in the CIA organization, Nate and his superiors organize a meeting about their spy, Marble, who not showing himself. Nate explains that Marble only communicates with him and convinces his superiors to agree to his presence in a country in Eastern Europe. They accept only because as soon as Nate contacts him, he introduces the other CIA agent, Marty, to him and withdraws. At school, girls and boys are faced with soldiers. Dominica chooses a boy among the country's soldiers and takes him to the room. After reviewing their video, Matron admits that Dominica's technique is good. After class, while Dominica is taking a shower, Hector tries to forcefully rape her, but she defends herself and stops Hector. Ivan, Korchnoi, and Zakharov know Nate travels to Budapest and wishes to identify the high-ranking Russian spy. Still, they know that the president prefers not to do anything to harm the United States. Matron and Korchnoi question Dominica about her attack on Hector at the Sparrow school. Matron believes Dominica has potential, and Korchnoi decides to talk to her privately. To justify her fight in the bathroom, Dominica confesses that she is loyal to her country, and no one else, and after calling her uncle a patriot, Korchnoi wonders how brave she is. After that, Matron informs Dominica in a private meeting that she will soon be returning to Moscow, as it seems that the government officials have selected her as a secret agent. A few days later, returning to Russia, she meets her mother and is soon called by Ivan for a date in a restaurant. Her uncle informs her that she must meet CIA agent Nate in Budapest, win his trust and then reveal the name of their Russian spy. She receives documents about her new identity for this trip, rejects Ivan's offer to have lunch together and leaves the restaurant. A few days later, she arrives in Budapest and meets Marta, another Russian Sparrow, who will live in a shared apartment with her. Later that day, she asks Station Chief Maxim Volantov about Nate's new job, and then follows Nate's daily routine. She knows that Nate swims in a pool daily and tries to attract his attention with her beauty. While leaving, Nate stops her, and after getting to know Dominica, she strangely introduces herself as a translator and an embassy employee. She declines Nate's dinner offer and postpones it until tomorrow, hoping to seduce him. However, she doesn't see Nate at the pool the next day, and even as she leaves, the receptionist tells her that her ID is missing. It turns out that Nate took her ID. He informs his superiors that she has been using different names and that her true identity is Dominica, so they know her goal of finding a high-ranking Russian spy. Nate insists that she can be a good subject for them. After much effort, Trish and Marty reluctantly let him contact her for more information. During the ceremony, Dominica sees Marta talking to Stephanie Boucher, the representative of the American Congress at the embassy, and suspects their relationship. Moments later, Nate joins her and confesses that he stole her ID. However, their conversation is friendly, and Dominica invites him to dinner the next day at 8 o'clock. She returns to her apartment a little early and investigates Marta's room. Searching her room, she finds an envelope with photos and contents showing that the two are in a relationship and that Marta bought Boucher's information. Meanwhile, Marta returns to the apartment, and upon entering her room, she notices that the door is open and becomes suspicious. Dominica appears, and then Marta gives her a copy of Volantov's report, indicating that she has made a new enemy. The next day after work, Dominica tracks Volantov down to a bar and surprisingly sits next to him, asks him to buy her time with a better report, and teases his small member to get him to spank her. She threatens to have a camera on her dress. She warns that if he doesn't change his story, she will provide the police with surveillance video of the violence. Nate is waiting for his date at the restaurant. However, Dominica does not go to meet him. Instead, she follows him home and finds his apartment. After returning to his apartment, Nate notices and decodes another coded message named VN. While he leaving, she suddenly rings the doorbell and enters his house with a fake cry. As they drink whiskey, Dominica reveals her boss's attack. Nate asks her how she knows his address, and Dominica turns up the TV volume, ignoring his question. She approaches and kisses him after describing the incident in the Russian park. Nate says she must go home to find the answer to her wishes. She leaves him, and Dominika waits for him the next day, but Nate doesn't come, so she returns to his apartment. She sneaks into his house and realizes no one is there, so she starts a strange action and leaves a mark on the glasses. When she gets back to her apartment, Ivan will wait for her. He asks about Nate's case because his guardians are getting impatient. Dominika pretends she and Marta are working on their case together and asks for more money. As he leaves, Ivan tries to take his coat, but Dominika takes it because she plans to take his passport information. After he leaves, Marta immediately points a gun at her because she is upset that she was lied to about the Boucher case. Dominika promises that her credit will be returned and that she needs more time. Marta also forces her to reveal her story, and Dominika is forced to share everything about Dmitry with her. On the other hand, Marta tells Valentinov that Dominika might leave him alone. That night, Dominika returns to her apartment and finds Marta in the bathtub, brutally tortured to death. Matoran unexpectedly appears from behind her and grabs her by the neck, warning her about revealing her secrets, actually Dmitry's affair. He says that she has to call the authorities before he leaves, so Dominika is questioned at the police office for Marta's murder but pretends not to know anything. Nate reports to his superiors about his encounter with Marble in Vienna. He learns that Dominika is a Sparrow but still believes she is attractive. When Dominika leaves the police station, Nate is waiting. In his apartment, he confesses that he knows Dominika is a Sparrow. She responds by expressing concern for her mother and saying she had to accept these conditions. So Nate decides to trust her and offers to protect her as his double agent, then tells her she needs to sleep and lets her into his room. Dominika sneaks out at night to touch Nate and then asks him if she can trust him. When he says yes, she kisses him, and they have a dreamy moment together. The next morning Dominika wakes up to familiar music and tells Nate that it was the first time she danced to it. After accepting her cooperation with Nate, Dominika resumes her routine. Then, to assess her reliability, she meets with Nate's supervisors to be tested on a lie detector. Upon acceptance, she asks for $30,000 in exchange for information on defense satellites that American spy Boucher will sell. According to her explanation, they have an appointment with Boucher in London next Friday. The CIA sends Dominika to a hotel room with surveillance cameras and a set of hidden discs under a table to replace the real ones if needed. While she waits for Boucher at the bar, Volantov unexpectedly arrives to offer help, surprising her. Dominika sends him to her room so that the plan doesn't fall apart, and then when Boucher arrives, she lies to her that Marta sent her. At first, she refuses, so Dominika threatens her with leaked photos of her to convince her to deal. Volantov is waiting for them in Dominika's room. After exchanging the hard drives and money, Dominika pretends she must check their legitimacy in the system first. After swapping the discs with the originals while Boucher is scared and drunk, Dominika and Volantov tell her to wait an hour and then leave the hotel. She leaves the hotel without paying attention to them, and when she reaches the street, she notices the officers around her and throws the money in the trash bin out of fear. She rushes across the street and is hit by a car, killing her instantly. Volantov hears the news on the phone while driving with Dominika. He takes her passport and tells her in disbelief that she must return to Moscow immediately. After learning about this, Nate tries to prevent her from being sent back to Russia, but when he arrives at the airport, it's too late. After Volantov arrives in Moscow, Ivan takes the discs from him. Volantov and Dominika are accused of helping America and are tortured into confessing. She initially denies the accusation and endures torture to find out the truth. They continue to torture her to confess her cooperation with CIA agents, but she refuses to accept this charge. Despite showing a video of Volantov being shot for lying, she still insists on her opinion. After her uncle interrogates her, Dominika begs him to protect her.
Send me back. Let me finish what we started.
She returns home but feels so bad that she doesn't let her mother hug her. In a tense meeting with Korchnoi and Zakharov, Ivan discusses Dominika's offer to return to her mission and find the high-ranking spy. They finally leave the decision to him. Dominika waits for him in her uncle's apartment after bathing and dressing herself. He says she can continue working on Nate's case when he arrives. She kisses her uncle but refuses to continue and leaves. In Budapest, Dominika meets Nate, and they hug each other. She remains on her previous stand of working with him. After Nate agrees to Dominika's request to move her and her mother to the United States and give her more money, they make love. They kiss each other and sleep together again. At midnight, Dominika hears a noise from the kitchen and gets out of bed to check the situation. She suddenly sees Matoran strangling Nate. She initially supports Matoran in torturing him, even helping him harm Nate to expose the high-ranking Russian spy. As Matoran prepares himself for another form of torture, Dominika hits him. She helps Nate free him from the chair by cutting the straps. In a fierce fight, Dominika kills Matoran while both are injured. She immediately calls the embassy, and then the next day, she leaves her room in the hospital to smoke a cigarette. To her disbelief, Korchnoi approaches and surprises her by revealing himself as Marble and that high-ranking spy. He fears he will be caught soon and, instead of dying in vain, instructs Dominika to expose his identity to Ivan. Doing so would make her a national hero and allow her to replace him as a spy passing intelligence to the CIA. Dominika doesn't answer but checks on Nate before leaving. She reports herself to meet with the Russian ambassador. She asks him to make it possible for her to contact Zakharov. After she gave the name Zakharov, an airport meeting would be held later that night to finalize the deal. They walk to find the spy, and Nate insists that he will shoot her if she escapes because he thinks Dominika has taken advantage of him. Moments later, when the Russians bring the spy, they remove the bag from his face, and it turns out that Dominika named her uncle a high-ranking spy instead of Korchnoi. While in Budapest, she had established evidence of her uncle's involvement. After their exchange, a Russian sniper kills Ivan, and the helicopter takes Dominika. They take off from the airport, and Nate is surprised by her actions. She is known as a national hero, and everyone admires her. She goes to the theater to reminisce about her favorite profession, ballerina. At the movie's end, someone calls her and plays her favorite music instead of talking, which turns out to be Nate. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel.